Welcome to the Millennial Diner podcast. I am here at the fictitious Millennial Diner with Phil, as always. And today we're so honored to have from Houston, Texas, but Long Island originally, Michael Behr here with us. Michael Behr, thanks for joining us at the diner. I'm just getting my order in real quick. I'm just gonna do, I'm just in the mood for French fries today. Is that weird? I don't know. Some morning French fries.
No, that's not weird.
It's fine, right? I don't know. Just one of those mornings. I just want something salty, savory, fried. So I'm gonna do French fries.
Was it a hard night last night? That's usually a hard night last night kind of breakfast. Like maybe a fried egg.
I mean, yeah, I could throw a just egg on there. Why not? You're right, Phil. I gotta think about the full triangle.
Why not? I forgot. I'm sorry. A just egg. I'm sorry. You're right.
I don't even know. Do they still use the food pyramid? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Michael Behr, what are you going to order at the diner? Oh, sorry. I forgot. I also want a cup of coffee with some oat milk. All right.
Oat milk. I swear. Oat milk.
Michael Behr,
I'm going to go with my, even though it's the morning here, I'm going to go with my traditional dine order of a pizza burger, some white toast, and a chocolate shake there. Kind of classic post-show food right there.
That's pretty good. I mean, I think a pizza bagel, because it's on a bagel, is really food for any time.
That's right.
And is there anything better than like cold pizza in the morning? Really? You just wake up, the box is still there.
No, there's nothing better with that. That's breakfast of champions.
Yeah, and you dip your cold pizza in your hot coffee, whatever you got to do.
I remember one time I woke up and all we had in the dorm room was like cold pizza and like for whatever reason like warmish water. I remember crawling and grabbing like the pizza and just kind of shove it into my mouth as I like was on the floor. It was one of those rough nights. I am gonna have oh gosh, let's see, rye toast with butter and black coffee. I'm gonna go with that today, guys. That sounds good.
Wow, it's a classic order from Phil there.
That's right, especially with black coffee there.
Yeah, it's tasty. It's a good way to wake up. I think that jolt of like pure black coffee. Yeah, that sounds good. I like it.
Well, they'll get I think we got Flo as our waitress today. Thanks, Flo. She's gonna go get that to the kitchen, get us going. Sure to got us our coffees, thank goodness.
Well, because she knows by now the routine. I mean, she has seen us coming in, and just then the crapshoot is who's the guest. What's the guest gonna have?
Yeah,
that's just she doesn't know what to do with that.
She got a chocolate shake coming at her this time now.
That's right. Gonna keep her on her toes this hour of the morning. So.
Well, I'm so happy we're all here. I'm happy we all drove here, this diner, and didn't get into a car crash. Because I was thinking a lot about 2003 and the music that was very popular or coming out in 2003, and music videos that are coming out in 2003. And car crashes seem to be a thread through the emo, post-punk, hardcore, whatever you want to call it, scene at the time. I mean, of course, there's the seminal Thursday song, Understanding in a Car Crash. We're singing about someone who passed away in a car crash. And then a few years later, Fall Out Boy had this great line of like, "Long live the car crash hearts," in their song Thriller. But also in 2003, there were at least two videos of the emo scene that involved pretty much the same storyline, where it was Brand New's "The Quiet Things No One Ever Knows." It's the singer of Brand New is in a ambulance with a woman who was in a car accident, and she's barely hanging on, and the singer is singing, and cutting back to the band, and then the big twist is, oh, the singer died in the car crash, and that was his ghost. But then Finch, for their song "What It Is to Burn," has a very similar video where the band's playing in the woods, and there's this guy realizing there was a car accident, and slowly realizes that he was in the car accident, and finds out his body is still in the front seat. So he also, a ghost, died in a car crash.
I feel like that's like the storyline of like every like alternative 80s like music video back
right
then. Like that, yeah, I feel like that's like the basics plot line of every one of those videos.
Well, it's the sixth sense of I guess suburban nightmares because it's the car accident, and then you're walking around being like, "Hey, look at this! I guess I'm dead."
It's either a car accident or the OD. I think that seems to be the trend of those videos.
Yeah, it's a very tried and true trope. I only bring this up because Thrice actually has an album that came out in 2003 called "The Artist in the Ambulance," and we'll get into the titular song at some point. But it's very much the story of the song is a car accident and how the person is dealing with that as the artist in the ambulance, the medical technician is putting them back together and saving them. So my thing is, if only all these other ghosts in these music videos, emo music videos, had an artist in the ambulance to save them, maybe things would have been different.
Could have been different. But my only problem with that is that then we wouldn't have all these good albums. And also I'm going to point out, Jeff, you said 2003 like 12 times.
Yeah, I sure do. I like saying
sure.
2003.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. You know what? When I started prepping for this, I was thinking about it. I was like, there's no way this album's 2003. And I said, shit, it is 2003. Michael Behr, we have a running thing where it's 2003 versus 1995. We've yet to cover an album from 1995, which I have to start working on. But anywho, to see what's the better year for the scene. And I'm slowly coming around this 2003 idea. I really am. A lot of good
I
stuff.
didn't realize the brand new album was 2003 as well. And you start looking back at all this, you can't believe all these are reaching their 20-year anniversaries at this point. And you look back and you just think about it. And 95 was a very good year as well, but 2003 is probably up there as well.
I feel like it's becoming like a seminal year that I don't even realize. I didn't realize how important this year really is for music, the genre, the scene, all this stuff.
Well, my wallet certainly figured it out this year because of all these 20th anniversary shows that are happening. I know that I recently went to see Finch do What It Is to Burn in its entirety, even though I think that album technically came out late 2002, but whatever, we'll call it 2003. And I know, Michael Behr, you just recently saw Thrice actually doing this album in its entirety. Yeah.
That's correct. I drove up to Austin. They did not have a Houston stop on this tour, so I drove the 2.5 hours on a Tuesday night to go rock out and see them play the album front to back, plus some additional songs. It was a great time. So,
what is it about this album for you, Mike?
This album kind of connected myself from more of the hardcore and metal that I had previously listened to into more of this scene. This was kind of the transitional album for me, just in terms of the kind of more hard riffs, things like that. But the lyrical content is kind of what spun me back into more of the emo type scene and things like that. I kind of always was a little bit more connected to that hardcore and metal, and this tried to transition me into more appreciating this side of the aisle, if that makes sense.
It does.
So some of the just the riffs, the music, the lyrical themes, kind of all ties together to me. It's something that I just have a very strong emotional connection to, probably a little bit because of the nostalgia, the time it came out, plus just some great songs. Yeah.
No, that all makes sense. It's funny. I was doing research, obviously, on the band, the album, also in my own memory banks, going back there, loading in some old files. And I definitely remembered the first time I saw Thrice was actually at an Alkaline Trio Hot Water Music tour. I know, Phil, you're just like, what? Why didn't I invite you? I don't know.
That is a bonkers lineup. My goodness, what a lineup! Did Thrice open?
Thrice was the opener. Cave-In was also in that show.
Oh my gosh!
Which I know is one of Michael Behr's favorite bands. It was the Plea for Peace tour. This was like it was a tour, I guess, the early 2000s that was very much about alerting fans of like, they did a lot of things like suicide prevention and just like, it was a very political minded kind of tour that just was trying to help society. It was literally named Plea for Peace. And that show was the first time I saw Thrice. And at that time, it was before this, where like, I was just like, oh man, this band just thrashes. Like, this band's intense and it's awesome.
And it's funny because as they still rip out the thrash from time to time, but as you kind of go through their later albums, they get more and more mellow, but still kind of have that edge to them at times. And I've been a fan. I'm more of a Thrice head as I've kind of gone through the years here, but just coming back to these old albums and watching the crowd reaction when they pull out these old songs, it's just so fun to watch that and all that. So everybody kind of likes to let loose and let the release come out, and that's kind of what's great about not only Thrice but the whole scene. So
It's funny, Michael, that you talked about how they cooled off a little bit. They lightened up tonally, I guess, not really lyrically, but tonally lightened up later on in the albums. And they wanted to do that with this album, but they didn't. They actually, I remember reading that they felt rushed for this, and that they weren't never really fully happy with it, which I'm like, I don't understand, because this was actually this specific album was my introduction to Thrice, where I remember playing it the first time and I was like, what the fuck is this? This is like, because the melodic hardcore is where this, I think this kind of it's built out of. And I think they kind of created a subgenre just from this album, this or the previous one with Illusion of Safety. And I remember.
Yeah, and you certainly see this thread as you kind of look at some of the bands that opened for them and things like that. I've really gotten into this band called Drug Church recently.
Love Drug Church. Love them.
Yes. I love them very much. I saw them open for Thrice on the Bishu 15-year tour a few years back, and they kind of took that same kind of post-hardcore thread and went with it. And I absolutely love what they're doing. They're playing in Houston in a few weeks, and we'll probably go to that for my first non-Thrice anniversary show in a few years with the pandemic and everything. But they're going to be down here with a couple of hardcore bands as well, so I'll probably go check them out. But you kind of see Thrice's legacy, kind of as you were saying, Phil, almost maybe not creating the post-hardcore genre, but certainly influencing a lot of bands that came after them that I'm still listening to this day. So,
because the producer is Brian McTiernan, who is gone on. He played in Battery, but I only got introduced to him recently. And Be Well, which is another melodic hardcore band. Check out Be Well, very good band.
Well, the other thing about, I think, Phil, you hit upon it and you said that they were not happy with this album when it was recorded. This is also their major label
debut.
Guessing, look, there was basically a feeding frenzy in the early 2000s for major labels. Thrice and Thursday got picked up on Island, I believe it was.
Yes.
Yes, and they both have huge albums that came out this year. It was both their major labels. I'm sure they were both. Again, reading Dan Ozzi's book, Sellout, which again mentioned every episode.
Haven't mentioned it yet, but I'm glad we did.
I know Thursday talked a lot about being promised that they were going to be like the next Nirvana or something. I'm sure Thrice got a very similar pitch, because they're coming out of like similar scenes. Thrice, of course, coming out of Irvine, California, so they are the SoCal version of like the Thursdays. Obviously very different sounds, different kind of bands, but there is something about those two bands, I think, that stood out of the scene in maybe the maturity of their lyrics, which we'll get into as we talk about what this album actually kind of talks about. But again, so the major label debut, they got rushed. They were never that happy with it. We all love this album, so we're like, what are you talking about? Obviously, the big news was this year they re-recorded this record.
Yep.
They revisited it. One, I would love to talk about your feelings about a redo on an album in general. Like, is this the director's cut? Is this George Lucas going back and getting rid of the yub-yubs and the Ewoks and doing it how he originally wanted? How we feel about that? But I don't know. For preparation, I mostly listened to the original just to like, because that's what we're talking about. But I did want to hear finally the new version, and the new version sounds so good.
It's so good.
Like to me, and again, I'm not an expert in music. I don't really understand. I just know what I feel. But so my technical terms are going to be off here, but it just felt like all the music tracks were separated and I could like hear everything. Where like, and then when I go back to this one, I'm like, oh, it's all muddled together. Like it's all layered on top of each other. But in the original one, maybe it's almost like a more live experience. I really hear the technicality in the guitar works and the bass work and the drums crystal clear in the new version.
So I love it. I was so excited when it came out. I got to listen to it and listening to it. It's funny. I forgot that Brian McTiernan is on it. He's on he's on Hood to Peregrine. He does that. I like it because it sounds like they would sound live. Like I think there's more. It doesn't feel as they use the word stiff. That's how they felt about the original one. This one I felt it was more cohesive. It was more like it's more of an experience, I guess. I guess how I feel about it. It totally kind of hits you harder, I think, and it sounds more realistic. Oh, that sounds weird to say that, but that's kind of what that was my first thought. Michael Behr, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought the same thing. It sounds more like they just kind of went into the studio space and started, ripping it like it would be a live version. That was exactly my thought when I first heard it. I think it also makes sense because his voice has modified so much in the last 20 years that he's kind of coming from a different point of view now. Just his voice, just both physically and his songwriting, has changed so much over the years, and you see both of those on this new version. It kind of has that more raw feel, more from the gut. Again, not doing the technical music, but everything's kind of pitched down lower, just because he can't physically hit the notes anymore. But it also hits a little bit harder in terms of the emotion and the feeling that you're getting from each song as well. So I also greatly enjoyed it. Kind of having the guests come in. You had the guy from Hot Water Music come in. You had a couple of other up and comer bands in there. Having some of the folks that maybe were part of the scene at the same time coming in and lending their support, as well as some of their proteges that have kind of come down the line there, and having this be kind of a watershed album for them. It was nice to hear that as well.
Yeah, definitely check it out. We'll talk about the original, but definitely check it out, because on the guest front, like I saw Andy Hull from Manchester Orchestra was on Stare at the Sun. Immediately I'm like, well, this is gonna be amazing. Like Andy Hull's voice thrown in anything, I'm always like, yeah, throw Andy Hull on one song at every album. That's what we need. But yeah, so just on that though, how do you guys feel about an artist or a band doing something like this? Because my thought was, I didn't really read into it originally why they did it, and I'm just like, and this is my cynical side, I'm like, is this just a cash grab nostalgia thing? Like there's plenty of bands who I know who would probably do something like this, just for that reason. But then I read, it was like, oh no, there was a specific reason. Like they were unhappy with the original major studio version. And this is the only time I think anyone's ever gonna make this connection, but Thrice and Taylor Swift are on the same page, right? Because this is the Artist in the Ambulance, Thrice's version, right?
Right.
And maybe Taylor will do a cover of it and do the Artist in the Ambulance Taylor's version. I think we'd all like to hear that as well. But until then, we have this. So Thrice and Taylor Swift on the same wavelength about, no, we want to give you what we really want this to be, and it's okay to go back and redo it. I'm kind of okay. I'm very okay with it, because I'm like, why not? Like, as an artist, we're revisiting work you did 20 years ago, especially as you're talking about his maturity of his songwriting and how his voice sounds. Like, how would you tackle these songs now with your life experience that you have here? And you're just kind of you're not just repackaging it, you're reimagining it in that sense.
Yeah, that's right. So my thought was, I just enjoyed this album so much. It was nice hearing the influence and then coming back to it and wanting to re-record it. It felt like they did have something else to say on it. They did have a reason to come back to it. It didn't feel like a cash grab, especially with the new business model that we've seen evolve over the last 20 years, where you can throw stuff out on streaming, one price, you're paying for all these songs and things like that. It's a little bit different than back when the scene was first coming up, back when we had to purchase all of our albums separately and things like that. An artist has the flexibility to go and say, I didn't really like that version. I can go back and put the material out there again, so we can get our true vision out there. As you say, kind of with Taylor Swift putting all this stuff back out, and you see it with her latest album. She's already released like 4 different versions of that on streaming, kind of tweaking the formula a little bit every time. And because of the model, you're not going out and spending your $15-$20 on the album every time. You're really communicating more directly with your fans that way, and it doesn't feel as cynical as it may have 20 years ago.
I think it comes down to intent. Like we've said, like, what's the point? Why are you doing this? If it's because you're unhappy with something, or you thought you could do it better, or maybe you don't feel the same way about it. They talked about they felt it was stiff and they wanted to redo it and make it sound more raw, more emotional, more like a live experience. And like you can hear it, I totally can hear it. So it comes down to intent for me. Why are you doing this?
Yeah, and I think with the intent and also just, I think for any artist, you hear this a lot, and like I'm sure this is a struggle that a lot of artists go through, especially in this time of nostalgia. Like, I don't think these bands want to be, no band wants to just be a nostalgia band. They want to be relevant in the moment. But I think that taking the time to kind of say thank you to this watershed moment in your career that has connected with fans of so many different ages over the years, what's the best way to kind of like tackle that? It's not just a tour. It's like, what if I like this idea of like, not just a tour, but 20 years later, we're just going to re-record it the way we always wanted to. I think it makes it more interesting for the band as well. And it kind of gives a little more, I think emotionally they're going through a different process, like re-recording these songs. I'm sure it's interesting to like go through all that. But I just want to say, like, I know this is not a cash grab because Thrice is not a band who does cash grabs. Thrice is a band who is very much thinking about the community and has always been all about raising money for organizations that they feel very strongly about. And as we get into the themes of this album, we can start with the first song. This is not a cash grab because the first song is called Cold Cash and Colder Hearts. Right. It kicks off this album in a fierce way. And if you are an emo kid and you're like, who's Thrice? You're about to like buckle up because they're not talking about heartache or a friend stabbing in the back. Like, no, we're going after capitalism right at the top.
Right at the get.
Right.
This is one of my favorite openings to any album. It's so quiet, and I like how there's actually a delay. I think there's a little bit of a delay. Like it plays and it's kind of quiet for a second. You're like, the fuck, and then all of a sudden Dustin comes in with the scream, and oh man, that's so good. Such a good start. But yes, this is most certainly a song about capitalism.
And it pops even harder on the re-record, in my opinion. Is you hear the raw and like the breath coming in, and it's a little bit less slick, which kind of makes the songs hit harder for me. And this song in particular is kind of where you really start to see a lot of Thrice's politics as well, in terms of it's not just capitalism, but also refugees, something that's still relevant today. Die by the thousands, and we look away. There are wolves at the door. They're not going to move us or get in our way. That sort of thing. So, kind of the view that we're sitting here on our perch and looking at the poor masses there, and we're feeling all right at the top of the world, and who cares about them? It's sadly something that still relevant in our politics today, where we're keeping that. It's hard to talk Thrice without bringing in politics and religion, unfortunately. So we're gonna have to kind of touch on some of those topics we're not supposed to talk about in polite company. But
we're leaning in in because
let's go. This is a political band. They are.
There's nothing we can kind of separate it.
You can't separate it. You can't, because like just the different god, darker skin. Like, so like we're gonna right at them. This is so anybody who is different from us. So we are at the top, the folks at the top. We don't like anybody who's different than us. We have all the money. I don't care. I have all the money in the world. I don't need to worry about you guys. That's what, that's the point of where they're talking about. And this is a song about division. Right? I've said it a bunch of times. I'm all about community, not competition. This is a song about competition. This is about being divisive and being divided and benefiting from that.
100%. And then on top of that, the choice to put the point of view in the aristocracy of, if you will, like off the top. Like, it's like you hear this and you're like angry about it, but like they're like, wait a second, who am I siding with here? Because the song is coming from that point of view, which I think is such a smart way to like handle it. And just,
well, that's Dustin, right? I mean, that's him. He is a great. It's funny to think he's gotten better as a songwriter, but just he's good at coming from a different. Writing a song from a different point of view, which not necessarily is like, it's more sardonic and sarcastic, but like also kind of a menacing way of approaching this. But I love that his approach to things is always from a is from a point of view you won't expect. And I think that's what helps get the point across of the song.
You'll see that a couple more times in this album, even and some of the later tracks, which we'll get to later. But yeah, I kind of agree with that as well. And it does fit in with then he has come back to these themes several times over the years, and you see the seeds of everything Thrice will become over the next few decades in these albums. Even though sonically they do change and mellow out, but the themes still resonate all these years later.
Yeah, and it helped. Other bands have taken on the same kind of concept. Like I think Rise Against is another band, but like I think Thrice does it a little better. That's just my personal opinion. That's fine. Hot take. If you want to disagree with me, you can mail letters to New Hampshire, and I will gladly read them. But I feel this is an outstanding way to start an album, to make a statement and a point, and to like throw it in a flag. Although I'm not about waving flags, but throw down and plant his flag in the ground. So this is what we were about.
I mean, this is also kind of like really shows the real punk rock roots, right? Like they actually have a political stance that they're getting across to their fans. And again, I'm sure a lot of fans, especially like when you're like 16 or something, and you just want to rock out, you're not even like really paying attention necessarily to what's actually happening. So for all those kids who did start paying attention, and especially in places where maybe they are politically conservative, maybe they started opening up their eyes a little bit more. And that's, isn't that punk rock?
How punk rock it is. It is. No, it is. That's truly what it is. Hopefully, I remember Bad Religion joking around about that, but like their fans first coming to them because they liked the way they sounded. And they were like, well, if you like the way we sound, I hope then you start paying attention to the lyrics to see whether or not you're going to continue listening to us. And Thrice is the same way. Like, it's funny. I wonder if it'd be such a different experience if they, like, if it was just music, instrumental, like strip out the lyrics, like what kind of experience that would be versus the experience with the lyrics in there. Now I'm curious to see I'm sure I can find it online.
Well, the music is the delivery system of the message, right? So,
right.
I feel like we should listen to this one because it's a perfect opener, as you said, Phil, and it's so intense, and it really lets the listener know what album they're about to hear.
Yep.
So what do you say? All right. Cold Cash and Colder Hearts. What a start to the album. You know what's great about this album is number 2, just as awesome. Like we are not letting up. The foot is on the gas pedal, as it were. We're about to go watch some witches burn. Under a Killing Moon is the next song. Thoughts on Under a Killing Moon?
I don't think this album lets up. It just goes towards it. Under the Killing, it just goes hard the whole time. My thoughts on this one is I'm like, okay, so now we're going to talk about the Salem witch trials. All right, so we're going to go somewhere else with this. So we go from the capitalism, or I don't know, destruction of the class system, and then we're going to go into burning witches. It's weird, but and yet it makes sense because that is a group of people who got unfairly burned at the stake. Let's go with that.
The perfect transition of the sound, like you said, it just kind of goes hard throughout. And coming back to the show I just saw, where they played the album front to back, it just did not let up. It was just very difficult to kind of regain your energy. Each song kind of goes into the next, and it's just the riff kind of coming from the end. Cold Cash ends. The little strings at the end there, and then immediately kind of comes in with the riff again at the beginning of this one, and it hits. It keeps moving. You get that feel and emotion throughout the whole thing. So again, just perfect 1-2 punch to start the album here. Fantastic from a musical perspective.
Oh yeah, no, this song is one of my favorites in the album. Just because by the time you get to the end, he's just screaming "burn," on the witch's burn part. It's just, I mean, what an experience.
It does connect with the previous song, well, the theme of the previous song, because this is again sort of about conformity, I guess would be the best way to put it, because I love, I'm gonna say with the opening of it, so it's the air my lungs first loved, and it, like, to me, that's like his town. I'm gonna philosophy on this one. His town has changed, right? And so like it's what he used to love, but now it's carving craters in his eyes. Like it's now kind of a negative thing. Also, it's funny because like that's the fire, it's getting in his eyes, so it's like his eyes have to close. But I think it's about conformity in the end. Because toward the end of the song, he says, "I hold my breath and close my eyes." Now that's Dustin is very good at like double meaning lines. And for this, so he has to add wood to the fire to make the fire burn more, so the witch goes up. So he has to hold his breath and close his eyes because now, like literally, he has to get physically closer to a fire. But it's also about holding my breath, not saying anything, right? So I'm not going to say anything, and then close my eyes. I'm going to look away and just kind of ignore this, and I'm now going to conform with the people telling me, because if I don't, there's even a line here. If I don't, I'll be on there too. Like if I don't do, I'll live to walk away. That's it. I'll live to see the sun. If I just hold my tongue, right? So if he just conforms, he'll be fine.
What's really cool about that is, again, the point of view is we're not hearing this from the witch or the person who's being persecuted. We are now hearing another person who's just falling in line with, as you said, conforming to the power that be. And even though we know that this is fucked up, they shouldn't be doing this, like this is they're falling in line. So there's, again, I think also what I've noticed on this album, there's a lot of hopelessness in this album.
Oh,
it really it's like, and we'll talk about it as we get to the end. I'm like, I keep looking for like hope in this album, and you don't really get it. You don't really get it. It's just again, it's another picture or painting of like, and I think that's where the angst and rage is so well placed, because it's just a frustration about society, and we're using the witch burning as like the metaphor, but like you can point this to anything, and have been even today, you know.
right.
It's falling in line with your community, even though they're wrong, you know.
Right. It's allowing any group of people to be destroyed, taken out, seen as less. It's applicable anywhere.
Especially in Florida today.
Especially in Florida today. This makes total sense.
Or Texas, where I live, which is why seeing these guys in Texas is such an interesting thing. And looking specifically at the witch trials, it kind of goes back to Dustin's interesting relationship with Christianity and the church that he's so involved with.
Right.
You know, when Thrice was on hiatus in the late 2000s, 2010, somewhere in there, you know, he was a pastor at a mega church out in California, and he stood up to some of the corruption that was happening out there, which is extremely difficult to do. And you do see that complicated relationship in some of these songs here. I'm the passive person burning these people alive in the name of my God. Is that right? You start to see kind of the seeds of some of his thoughts on his church and religion here. He's a very liberal church member. If you look at some of his personal things, and he kind of takes those lessons to heart, whereas you see a lot of folks who are in the same boat as him, members of these giant churches, taking the opposite tack and being those oppressors, being those people who are looking down on the others. And that's just something I've always respected about Dustin and Thrice in general, is they, you know, I'm a fairly uncomfortable person with religion personally, but seeing how they use it more in a beneficial way as opposed to a cudgel, like some other folks do, is kind of heartening. And you know, seeing these guys in Texas, you do see a lot of folks coming from the church who got into them through their worship music, but kind of taking the message to heart and you know, using it for a good purpose and things like that. So it's kind of good to see from that perspective that he can still have that faith, but use it as a net positive as opposed to a weapon against others.
It's a song about, and from the perspective, the perspective is important, but it's a song about showing why it's wrong to stand idly by.
Correct.
Yeah,
that's what it is. I mean, I'll tell you this: Jesus wouldn't have stand idly by. He wouldn't. You know, and I think that's what this is kind of. And Mike, you can't have such a good explanation about. There's a lot of conflict, inner conflict, throughout a lot of these songs, and I think this is where we really first started, because the last one is very cold cash, cold heart. It's very more on the nose. Right? Like there's the allegory, but this one is where the conflict, the inner turmoil comes in. Good point. You know, this was a single
Was it?
This was the second single.
Did they
Yep.
make a video for it? I didn't see it. That was my research.
That I don't know. I don't know.
I don't think that the only video I've seen from this era is Stare at the Sun. I don't know if
Yeah.
they made other videos for the other ones.
Oh, they made a video for All That's Left. For
Okay.
sure. And
Oh,
it's
that-
Okay, we'll
yeah,
talk about
yeah.
that next. But yeah,
Yeah.
the only one I've seen is Stare at the Sun. I didn't look at the other ones, so yeah.
It's just I just was like, wow, this was a single. I mean, there's a hook to it. It's definitely a but it's just I don't know. It just doesn't fit the mold. That's the quotation marks for folks at home of a single. But I'm like, I'm all for it. Let's do this. Let's watch
Well,
the
it's-
witches burn.
No, it's cool because I think we'll get into the singles as we go through because it's All That's Left and Stare at the Sun,
Yeah.
which get more and more quote unquote emo as you move from All That's Left to Stare at the Sun. But yeah, I think it's awesome they just put this out. It's a great song. But since we've already kind of started talking about All That's Left a little bit, we can get into that song. You know, also this last song, you know, people are kind of giving up their autonomy to be with the group and stand idly by. It sounds like people who are losing their faith, and this song as another bleak one, even though this has got so many hooks, the guitar is so catchy, you can see why it's a single. The video, if you want to check it out, is a beautiful time capsule of 2003 fashion and what bands look like. Definitely check it out. It's a very simple video, but like there is a political message in the video as well. So their first video on a major label, they're showing like what kind of band they are. Again, this is not a couple breaking up in the video and standing outside a window with a speaker over their head say anything style. They're saying we are more of a political band. What are our thoughts on All That's Left?
It's
One
about
of my
losing
favorite
it's a-
songs on the album. Just in terms of the riffage, the message. And it's just a good song. So, you know, try to believe the sickness that we drained our hearts instead. We are the dead. You know, to trying to get through what was getting through our struggle and what we're part of, but kind of leaving part of ourselves behind. Just one of my favorite songs.
We are the ones who lost our faith. I mean, it's about losing faith. It's about, I like the bloodletting thing because it's fun. It's one, it harkens back to like that really weird idea that if I just drain the blood, I'm gonna be fine. Like that's just a strange thing as a concept anyway. But I like how he uses that, the bloodletting, but we meant to get rid of just what ails us or what is wrong with us, but we ended up like losing our heart. And to me, you use phrase like you lose your heart. It's kind of like you're losing your soul, not like in the religious thing, but like what makes you, in that kind of soul. And so it connects again. We're carrying this forward, this kind of conformist way of speaking in this song, because all that's left is really nothing. Even the shadows never look the same. So like after they've done all these letting out the blood and who we are, it's changed who they are and not for the better.
Well, I also think what's really great is it ends with this cry for help, basically. Like it really like, lands in this, can we be saved? Like he's screaming that out. Like, again, we're not full of hope here. It doesn't feel like, I don't feel like the narrators of this song are going to get what they're looking for. I feel like they are pretty much fucked.
Yeah, doesn't believe he can be saved, even though that's what he's asking at the end. He knows the answer. We are the dead. Could we be saved? We are the dead. We are already dead. We've lost everything we believed in. So just kind of a down ending to a lot of these songs. So.
It is, Jeff. You said it earlier. There's a hopelessness that's kind of carried forward. But do you think that because he's illustrating this kind of hopelessness, that it's showing to the listeners like, hey, I feel it too, right? Do you think that he's trying to build a community out of it by showing that, like, I also see it? What do you think?
I think that is kind of the intention of all this, right? Like this is what the message to the listener. I think they kind of nail this towards the end of the album a little bit more clearly, what you're saying, where they're kind of like, we're in this with you, and this is this is my bigger thought. Like, I'll say it now. The album's called "The Artist in the Ambulance," and the artist in the ambulance, in the literal sense, is the medical professional who's saving your life in the ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
Thrice is the artist.
Mm-hmm.
The ambulance is the music coming to save you, and that's what this is all about. Like, this is them. Like, even though it sounds like it's hopeless, even though they sound that they're painting a picture, it's really bleak about the world. They're doing that to wake it up in you, so you can do something about it. They are the artist who is fixing you to make the world a better place. That's my deep
We'll
thought.
get to this. We'll get to this in the last song, but since we have a hook right now, I'm gonna bring it up. You know, those lyrics in that song. You know, more than flashing lights and sound. That's kind of what you feel at the show, right? You know,
Right.
it is more than the flashing lights and sound that you get at the show. It's the you know, the sense of community, the camaraderie, part of being in that room. There's something special about it.
I love that song. Want to keep going with that song? You want to tackle that one now, and we'll skip it later?
Well, I think that's a good idea, but do you think we should just listen to All That's Left, because we gotta get a hook in there?
Yes, I do. I think that let's go with that. I like that idea. Let's play that one.
All right, we're gonna listen to All That's Left, and then we're gonna jump around track wise, and we're gonna go to Artist in the Ambulance, since we're already there.
here.
All right,
Here.
All That's Left. Here we go. And that was All That's Left. All right, so next song.
But that's not all that's left, Jeff. We have much more to cover.
Right, we absolutely do. Next song is Silhouette, but we're actually going to put a pin in Silhouette, and we're going to jump over to The Artist in the Ambulance, the titular song on the album, because we've already kind of started talking about it. And
well, it's just, I love this opening. It's the most punk rocky of the songs, because it just all, and hearing it live, I had to hear it. It is amazing, and the crowd always goes nuts as soon as he starts getting in. You know, because he takes the breath and he goes, you know, the late night break. First up, can we just talk about and appreciate the storytelling in this song?
mm-hmm.
Like, it is such, you get the whole story, and you get oh man, you also get the sense of how hard it is to kind of carry on. Like, okay, so the literal sense, a paramedic saved you, and now you have to live with that as a thing. Like, someone saved my life, and now I have to give back elsewhere. It makes me think of Saving Private Ryan every time that Saving Private Ryan in the end of the movie, where the old man version, you realize that the whole squad got wiped out just to save him, and he has to live with that forever. And he's talking to his family, and he's like, tell me I did something good, like it was worth it. And I always equated that with this song, even though they're vastly different things. But the fact that somebody saved me, right, and now I should do something to help save others, or do something more with my life because someone saved me.
Let's lead, not follow.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
What are they learning from this experience? Yeah.
Right. Yes. It's just the fact that, you know, he even said that, you know, I feel an angel steal me from the greedy jaws of death and chance. I mean, it's just the fact that someone saved him, and now that is awaken, sure, something in him that he has to go then and help save others. And Jeff, you made an excellent point that the band Thrice is the artist in the ambulance, and that and then delivering the music is how they're going to help save others. I love that. I love that approach. Love it. What do you think, Michael Behr?
I'm just reading through some of the lyrics here, and again, this song is just so powerful emotionally to me, because of, you know, just the way it reminds me of, you know, being part of this scene and going to shows and being part of one family and things like that. And how do we pay it forward and you know, give back to that community? And so every time I hear the you know, that last verse, you know, you've given me a second chance, the artist in the ambulance, you know, I know that I will never let you down. I hope that I will never let you down. I know that this can be just more than flashing lights and sound. That those lyrics just get me every time. So, you know, I hope that, you know, the folks who have saved me, the folks who are part of this community, that I'll, you know, continue to be a better person because of what I experience from these songs, things like that. And just, you know, having gone through some stuff medically being that back in that ambulance, the song just kind of always hits me just in terms of how, like you said, the physical artists in the ambulance helping me out versus, these songs and this music helping me keep my mental health going, things like that. If I'm having a bad day, I can throw these albums on, kind of come back, and I keep coming back to this, but it really is more than just flashing lights and sound. It's part of my identity, part of who I am, and it just this song in particular is very meaningful to me. So,
well, I love how you put all that. And earlier I said this album's got no hope, but this song has hope, right? This song
has all the hope for the rest of the album.
And it's also giving you the key to understand the coded message of the whole thing. Like, no matter how bleak it is, you just said, I could throw this album on and I feel better, and I could be a better person because I got the pick me up from listening to this album and this song, or even no matter what direction the song's going, it's like it's the starter to get you out there and be a better person in society.
And that you're not alone.
Yeah.
I mean, that's you get the communal feeling. When we all listen to this, we all get the same vibe. Like, you're not alone. Like, I love that. The last line is, that's what sells it. The final story is that, can we pick you up off the ground? Can this album do that? And, there's 3 testaments that it can. If you're feeling bleak, you're feeling hopeless, like, you've got friends in Thrice, in this album and other albums, but I like with this one particularly. I just
that metaphor in general for this entire genre of music. This is kind of the mission statement, I think, in terms of a lot of these albums, a lot of these artists, that communal experience. Can we pick you all up the ground? I think it's why it's resonated, and why you see the younger folks still coming to these shows. Seeing the 20th anniversary of this album, this song still probably got the biggest pop out of the crowd 20 years later, in terms of everybody singing along. It is a very meaningful song on a very meaningful album to a lot of people, and it's good to see the legacy of the song continuing through the folks coming behind us here.
If you had it, would this be the song if you were like, let me show you what Thrice is about? Would this be the one song you'd play?
This would probably be for where they began. Yes, it's probably the one song I would play in terms of their whole thing. Yeah,
that's fair to say. The one where they began. That's fair to say.
This song has been making my running playlist for 20 years now. So it's
every time it plays, I get excited. It's so funny. It's just every time it comes on, I'm like, yeah, let's do this. I'm ready. Let's go. I'm ready. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling ready for this. Let's go.
Let's go listen to it, I think. Well, let's let the listeners in on a little spoiler. We're gonna play the original version now at the end of this podcast episode. So you got to sit through and listen to your Spotify. Get to the end. We will play the new version off the re-recorded album, because you should hear how it changed, and then you should go listen to both albums forever. Do it. All right. Anyway, Artist in the Ambulance right now. All right. Back onto the track order. We're jumping back to Silhouette. Is this the only ballad on the album? And by ballad, I have quotation marks around that. This is the most ballady this album gets, which is
this
not
is probably
ballady.
the most straightforward emo song on the album. The lyrics are not nearly as strong as some of the other lyrics, but musically, you mentioned Artist in the Ambulance has been on your running playlist for years. This one's been on mine because the music is so good for this one. I think this is the first Thrice song I ever heard. Was this one actually? It wasn't the singles. I don't know if just walking around the dorms in college and hearing this one pop, but something about the music for this one that really stuck with me, and this is the thread that kind of hooked me into Thrice in terms of the heavy blast beats, kind of on the last few sections and things like that. And this is what really made the bridge for me from hardcore and metal into more of the emo scene. So probably not the strongest song of the album, but probably the one that hooked me on Thrice to begin with. So it's just a very, very important song personally.
Well, if we're talking about like earlier, we talked about the car crashes. We can also throw in the slitting of throats, very important trope in songs of this genre and era.
That's right.
This is the most emo of songs on this album. It's all it's missing is like the most emo of names, you know, like this don't step on my silhouette as I walk through the cemetery or some silly nonsense like that. You know, like it's missing
Yeah,
something.
these more words. These more words. Yeah.
Yeah, it needs to be like 17 words for some reason. That's I don't know why that was a thing back then to have
And
like
then
these obnoxiously long titles.
a parentheses that says we are shadow dancers or something like that.
Yeah, something like really like what does that even mean? I don't even get it. No, Silhouette's very on the nose. Yeah, I think it's lyrically, I don't think it's the strongest. What I think you're right, Michael Behr. What saves it is the music. The music is very strong. Like the song itself is very strong, but lyrically, it's just they've written better ones.
Well, I think all on that, and I think coming back to the Thrice in general in this album, what stands apart is a lot of bands this era at some will do the thing that they do really cool, whether it's like play an electric fiddle or have two singers screaming, whatever it is, swinging their mics and whatnot. But what Thrice always has is the music is so well crafted. I mean, they are. I imagine if you're a musician, they're like a musician's band just because of what the time changes they're doing and everything that's happening. These are not simple songs.
These are not simple songs. These are very complex because time changes often. There's signature changes that they go like 5/6, 6/8. I mean, or 5/6, 5/8 or 6/8. Like it changes. They change a lot of tempos, and that is very, very, very hard. I think at the root, Thrice is for very, very talented musicians. Everybody puts in. I mean, every one of them. That's why musically, I always said that. I'm like, I wonder what I just said earlier. Like, I wonder what just an instrumental Thrice album would be like. Like, what kind of experience that would be. I think it'd be awesome. Dustin, stop writing lyrics. Give me an album of of just instrumental Thrice songs.
Well, you know what, Phil? Maybe you should go stand outside, stare at the sun, and ask it for that instrumental Thrice song.
I am waiting on that miracle. That is exactly what I'm doing here.
You're due for it. You're due
I'm
for
due
that
for
miracle.
it too. I'm due for that one. So third single off the album, last one, "Stare at the Sun." This was the one this was the song that got me. I didn't hear about them until this one, so I'm kind of late in the game for singles. But "Stare at the Sun." Let's discuss. Let's discuss.
Emo jam. That's what this is. This is like the last song was like their step into the emo side. This to me is like the most emo. Not in like, again, the whiny of it, but just in like the emotion, the structure of the song. Like this is you can put on any emo playlist, I feel like.
Yeah, particularly the guitar parts in particular on this one are really kind of this era, of this time. And this like you said, between Silhouette and this is like the most emo section of the album between the two songs. This is kind of where they fit more into that mold, versus some of the other genres that they dabble in. Again, this is more of a almost another hopeless song. If you look at it again, so I didn't even think about this through this context. So, stare straight to the sun, and I won't close my eyes till I understand or go blind. So, again, not confident that he's really going to kind of get the answers he's looking for as he's staring at that sun. So,
but he's willing to go blind to feel something, to find out something. Like, let's just take a moment to think about that. I am willing to lose my ability to see things because I need something. Right. And now he talks about it could be natural, it could be religious. That doesn't matter because he talked about looking under stones or shrines. Okay. So that's religious or natural. Right. So faith, natural world, whatever, however you want to look at it. Which again, with Dustin, it's going to, a conflict is coming in again. But that he's like, give me something to make me feel better, make me feel that there's a point to all this, that things have reasons. I tell you this, this is one of those songs I identify with so much because as a younger man, I was raised one way and have now think differently than how I was raised, and I was always found that conflict with me. Like, we see a lot of bad things that happen in the world. We see bad things that happen, not just in the world, in your community, to people, your next door neighbors, right? And then trying to validate and explain away why those things happen is a very hard thing to do, at least from my perspective. And that's what I think, metaphorically, he's looking for answers to why things can be as shitty as they are. And that, I think, resonates with anybody. What do you think?
I think you're hitting the nail on the head here. I mean, you said it yourself. Like, if he's willing to go blind, to me, the word I hear the most in this song is desperation. Like, this is like everything's gone to shit. You know, this is the last gasp. Like, that's why he's willing to give up his vision. I mean, he just needs that sign, because this is the moment of complete hopelessness. Like,
it's not finding it anywhere. There's so much. It's covered every turn. So studied saints and scholars both is a line that's kind of always stuck with me. It's kind of looking, kind of, as you were saying earlier, Phil, between the religion and the natural, and looking everywhere for this answer, and not being able to find it. And lyrically, I'll just kind of read another thing here. I know there's a point I've missed: a shrine or stone I haven't kissed, a scar that never graced my wrist. Talking about, why am I here? Why haven't I killed myself yet? It's like, again, that bleak thought, and just waiting for that sign. Why am I here? What was I put here to do? That sort of thing. Something we can all kind of, I think, relate to, especially in our youth, in particular, kind of seeing all this bad stuff around us that we saw in the prior tracks, and then how was I put here to make things better, to improve things, and sitting here waiting isn't doing anything. Maybe it's another call to action as I'm thinking through this.
And it's a song that actually, it's funny, very, very sneakily, because I think Dustin's a very sneaky writer. He actually calls out a couple, I feel, calls out a couple other themes in other songs. So, like, opening up with the clutching useless lists and keys to doors that don't exist. Like, that's consumerism. That's owning things, like useless list of things I own and all that, which kind of harkens back to the first song. But later he says, do I trust my heart or just my mind? Right. So that's heart over head, which is a callback to, I actually think, the next song. No, is a callback to the abolition of man, which later on is about head versus heart. So it's like you can see a theme, themes keep coming up throughout all the songs, and there's a connective tissue between all that. Like, their thought was put into this. I appreciate that.
I think it's also, let's go back to something Michael Behr just said about, like, being a teenager and hearing this, or an adolescent and feeling like hopeless. But, like, I think this now, as we all get age, I mean, I think that this song stands the test of time, because there's going to be different points in your life where you're going to be faced with, like, oh man, why is everything falling apart? What's wrong with the world? And you're going to be looking for a sign to help you, because this is not just something to grow up out of. And maybe that's the big thing that's different than a lot of the Thrice and a lot of these bands, and a lot of the songs really are about this adolescence. And once you get perspective, these are not going to be issues for you anymore as much. But really, these are existential issues that never go away, right? Like, our fate and, like, our purpose and things like that are always going to be challenged throughout your life.
And that's maybe why the re-record of this album, still hits hard. You still see these themes, 20 years later, they're still as relevant. Hearing the voice coming out on the new album that has the more ravages of age, a little bit of an older, gruffer voice, you hear some of the weight of the lyrics a little bit more on the re-record, which makes it a little bit more powerful to me when I listen to that version now versus some of the earlier records and things like that. So, yeah.
I'm glad you guys brought that up, because there's a song coming up that I have now changed my opinion on, and I'm no longer I don't want to say I'm not a fan, because I am a fan. I have changed my perspective on a song, and that's coming up.
Oh, I'm very excited to hear that.
But it's not Paper Tigers, I can tell you that.
Well, so you still want to light the world on fire, is what you're saying?
Yeah. Let's. What is it from the Dark Knight? Some people just want to watch the world burn.
Some men just want to watch the world burn.
Paper Tigers, man. I love this title. So again, Thrice, again, it's a political band, and this is a reference to Mao Zedong about paper tigers, and that was his opinion of what the United States was. So they're a bunch of paper tigers. So what's a paper tiger? Let's answer that question. What's a paper tiger?
Why, I'm glad you asked. One that is outwardly powerful or dangerous, but inwardly weak and ineffectual, says Merriam-Webster.
Thank you, Merriam-Webster. Yeah, it's something. It's some all bark, no bite. I mean, that's it's a bulb of butterfly wings. So the same thing. It's kind of it is a something that should be ferocious, but just is not. It wilts quickly. Right? Paper would you put water on it, paper disappears. It gets all into mushy pulp. So now you have a mushy pulp tiger on the ground. That's what this. So it's something with all bark, no bite. What are our thoughts on this song?
And this is another one where when I was first listening to the song, this is probably one of my favorites on the album, just musically, in terms of where I was coming from, in terms of the prior genres I've been listening to. Still goes hard and heavy, but reading the lyrics now, it's another kind of anti-capitalist thing. So it's a lot more meaningful than I was originally giving it prior to reading the lyrics. I just first just like the heavy riffs and the screaming and how it viscerally made me feel, but it's another one where we're filled with rage. We paid for their crimes with our blood, with our lives, with our blood. We're the ones who are down below. So they're throwing their paper tigers out the window to keep us down. They don't really have the power we do on this side. So another strong political track that on the album.
The line, they toss paper tigers from their perfect porcelain skylines. I mean, that is just such an image, such a very us versus them. The porcelain, I mean, it's funny because it's just pretty. But they have this beautifulness and we don't down here, because they just keep throwing stuff that kind of put us up. I think you're right, Michael Behr. The fact that this is an acknowledgement, man. We down here have power that they don't have up there.
Yeah. I think
all they have is their paper tigers. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think this song also 20 years later is only getting more and more relevant as our middle class disappears and the aristocracies and the Jeff Bezos and the billionaire class of Elon Musk's are throwing paper tigers at us. And we need to keep this song because maybe we need to rise up at some point, and this will be a song that we can point to. So when the revolution happens, look for paper tigers to be playing by the guitar player in the front of the tank shooting fire out like in a
yeah, it's gonna be like on a speaker. I'm like, here comes the tank down Main Street, and the speakers gonna be blasting this song. But it's because he even pokes fun at the aristocracy because they don't even realize what they're like. They don't even realize what they're doing. So they light the world on fire to watch it burn. But it'll be their end, their funeral pyre, their end. But they don't seem to understand. They don't seem to learn. They don't seem to understand that. So by fucking with us so much, like eventually we're gonna get to a point where like I'm done being fucked around with. And I think that's what leads to, I don't know if it's revolution, maybe it's just political revolution, who knows. But you're giving us ammunition, for lack of a better word, to be against you. And you're furthering a divide. Like Jeff, great point. This is like the divide between us and them.
The proletariat is sick of paying their blood and their lives for these aristocracies. And we must take on these paper tigers with real tigers. Just oh, by the way, this song is I think this is like the most ferocious song on the album. It is such a banger. Just
I am like, I don't want to be fucked with when I hear this song. Like, do not get in my way because I am ready to go. Let's do this. Jeff, do we have to play it? We have to play it?
We do. I just want to say I free associate this song. There's a coffee shop near me called Go Get 'Em Tiger. And this song always pops in my head, which doesn't make any sense, but I'm always happy to have it pop in my head when I see that coffee shop.
Is that a Spider-Man reference?
I don't know. I hope it is.
Because doesn't Mary Jane always call Peter like Tiger?
Tiger, yeah. You hit the jackpot, Tiger, yeah.
Yeah. All right, you got to ask next time you go. Like, is this a Spider-Man reference? Because now I want to know.
And then I'm like, can you put on paper tigers while I ask you this question? And I sip this coffee. Anyway, enough of that. Let's listen to Paper Tigers. All right, next song on the album.
Another animal. Let's go from tigers to peregrine falcons.
Peregrine falcons, yes.
Hoods on Peregrine.
You know, the peregrine falcon is the fastest animal in the world.
Is it?
Yeah, when it dives, it is the fastest animal in the world. You know who told me that? My daughter.
Wow. I
Yeah, it
didn't
was
know
one of
she
those.
was
It was. Oh,
ornithology.
she's a huge animal lover. It's just one of those random things where she was like, "Hey, Dad, do you know, by the way, the peregrine falcon's the fastest animal in the world?" And then like she'd run off.
Did she do this recently, like while you were re-listening to the album?
No, actually, no. It was, well, I guess relatively recently. Yeah, within the last like month or two. She's randomly distilled knowledge upon me, and it took off like a peregrine falcon. To go play somewhere.
Well, Phil, normally what you like to do is talk about how much the title's important. So
See, this is a very important title. It really is. Thank you for that
Absolutely
segue.
is. I was actually going to bring this up if nobody else
That,
did, but go ahead,
that
Phil.
is a fantastic. Thank you for that segue. I'm going to go right ahead. So, what's a hood on a peregrine falcon? What's a hood? It stops them from being attacking, from being like it basically it calms them down, right? And we get that in a couple of ways in this song. We get that from the blue light, which is the TV. We get that from the black ink, which is the newspaper, right? These are the things they put on us to control us so that we don't pay attention anymore. And again, 20 fucking years later, this song still means a great deal to the where we are in the spectrum of the US politics. My goodness, it's a cautionary tale. Cautionary tale that eventually we won't know the difference between truth and lie, is what this is about.
is social media today our hood?
Oh, it could. Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't even think about that. You're right. It could be. I mean, if it's a means to control, which is what the hood is supposed to do, it's supposed to control the animals that it only attacks when we want it to, or does things we want it to do things. So yeah, social media could be it. The way we 100%. Yeah, now think about it. Yeah, because it's the way you can social media is great and terrible. It's like the internet. It's the best and the worst of us in general. That it can be used for such great things. Like I remember they used social media to unify people in Egypt so they could vote, right? Like that's amazing. But then again, it's also a way to expunge hate everywhere easily. Only a couple of hashtags. You know, I hate these people. I hate those people. Hashtag I hate these people. Hashtag I hate those people. Like it is definitely could be a hood.
Well, it's interesting because like it also it can ignite fury in people too, right? Like you're saying, but
Yeah.
maybe more the hood is just the device itself that's keeping us like our heads down on our phone, basically, as opposed to marching to the streets and taking down the paper tigers.
Right. Because
Yeah,
I love the line. You think they're selling you truth? They're not. They're not selling you truth. They're selling you lies, and you're believing them. What are you gonna say, Michael Behr?
no, it's interesting. You know, the hood, the peregrine is obviously a predator. Putting the hood on it takes all the predator out of that bird, and
Excellent.
you know that's something we do, particularly with social media. Too much television, too much content out there to consume, and you know, taking our predatory instincts away. Um, and again, you know, think they're selling you truth. Truth is they're selling you out, and you do get that a lot on social media, as you guys were saying, in terms of very easy to, you know, for a lie to go halfway around the world, whatever that old quote is, you know, where the truth is put its pants on or whatever. And social media amplifies that, makes it worse. You say the false impression, you know, 100, 200 times more than you see the retraction of the fact and things like that. It's very difficult when, each of us has a microphone and we use that improperly.
It makes me think of They Live, the movie They Live, where it's consumerism, like it was like forced upon consumerism because then we're controllable. I mean, it's the same kind of concept that if you keep us looking at something else, we'll never see what you're doing, right? If we're looking one way, you're free to do something the other way, which is selling us out, to be perfectly honest. I mean, it's all about controlling us.
Yeah, and this song is a wake up call, right? This is
Right.
the intent of this. This is like you gotta like realize what they're doing to you and be angry about it.
Like, wake up. You were
Yeah.
like you were being controlled and you're allowing it, right? Yeah. This consumerist society we have where we're just like, give me more things on the TV, give me more things to read in the newspaper, although now it'd be more like Kindles or Twitter. Like Twitter, my big beef with Twitter is always like, I don't know if I necessarily care what your opinion is all the time. You know what I mean? It's just, but Mike, you even said it that like we have this 20 or sort of you mentioned it, the 24-hour news cycle that like things just can get sent and like, oh, wait, that was wrong. We'll retract that and then we'll issue a new truth.
Yep.
Talking about a cautionary tale,
Yeah.
melting
Yeah,
point of
this is
wax.
Oh boy.
so. This is the one I was thinking of, where we talk a little bit about perspective and everything. This being kind of told from the point of view of Icarus as opposed to Daedalus. Usually we use this as a negative tale about Icarus, and this song is so interesting because Icarus is more the heroic figure as opposed to the tragic figure in this one. We don't see him fall from the sky at the end. The melting point of wax means nothing to me at the end. It's still, he's going to touch the sun or die trying. There's something noble about that. In the end, it's just an interesting twist on this myth.
This is the song where I've now changed my opinion on it. I still love the song, but now as a dad, I'm like, fucking Icarus, man. Like, I built you all this stuff to get you out of here, right? Because, well, there's a companion song. They write another song later on from his father's point of view.
Yep.
And when he's watching his son fall, he screams out, oh gods, why is this happening to me? And that it's such a sad, it hits differently now as a dad, because I like from Daedalus' point of view, I actually understand it, because I'm like, I'm trying to get you out of here and away from this. And you your hubris takes over, and like, no, I got to know the different. I like the line. I have to know the what's limits and lies, the difference between limits and lies. And like, I get that, but at the same time, it's like, I got you out of here, and then you went up to the sun. I told you not to do it, and then you fell to your death.
Yeah, but he's willing to find out what impossible means, Phil. Like, this is
I get that, but from a father's point of view, you're like, yes, I know, but I want you to survive, because the point of it is for you to survive and not for me to survive. Like, I go first, you go second. That's the order and how it's supposed to be. It's not the other way around.
In raising my own children, I do want them to have a little bit of an Icarus, though, and having the stones to go and do that. So it's a balance between, you do need to let them, have their Icarus moment. Go try to touch that sun. You may think they're going to fail. You may see them failing, but you want them to have that ability to go reach for greatness and things like that. It's kind of hard to see it from, you want to give them the words about the melting wax and things like that, but you also want them to reach for their dreams and reach for their goals. Touch the sun, hopefully not die trying, but you want them to have that mindset to go out there and reach for it. But kind of agree that it's a delicate balance to walk as a parent, because holding them back too much. Go ahead.
It's the trust, right? Like, he says it in this one. He hears it, right? I hear the voice of reason. That always gets me, that the father is the voice of reason. He's like, don't do that. You don't go too high. You're not going to work. And I totally get you, Mike. You're right. It's like, I want my kids to try hard and to try to obtain their dreams, right? Go for it, right? But to do it sort of cautiously, and I think maybe strategically, like making a good choice here or there. But like, if I say, as the voice of reason, he talks about it in the Daedalus song, the song itself, the companion song, that like, I gave you really solid advice that you decided not to take, and it did not go well for you, but that affects me. It's more than just affecting yourself. Like, understanding that you make a choice, as Icarus has, that's not a singular result. It's not just going to affect you. It is going to affect others. And I think that's another layer. That's why this song is so good. And I'm a fan of it, but at the same time, I'm like, because it's understanding that cause and effect. It's really, really what this is about. So you can go for it, right? But understand there's going to be an effect, and possibly not just on yourself, but on others. And that's why it's a very cautionary tale.
Well, I hear all that, and I think in the context for me of this album, where we are talking about kind of this, it's time to rage against the machine, it's time to wake up, it's time to rise against, the melting point of wax is a limit that's put on people, right? Like, right. And it's literally put on Icarus, like, you can fly, but you can't fly too high because the wings will melt, right? But like, no, we need to bust through this. We need to make change. So sometimes it's going to require people pushing the limits as much as possible. In this case, it doesn't work, but you still need people be willing to do that to free us from the stranglehold that the capitalists have on us.
It's a very heavy song. It's a
This
very
is
heavy
a
song.
very heavy song, but never
It's-
kind of having that not having enough Icarus in you is bad, and maybe having too much is also kind of trying to find that middle ground. That's just kind of, I guess, what we're all striving for.
Yeah, we need an Icarus, right? There has to be an Icarus story. We need to like know that that's possible, and for Icarus itself, it sucks, and for Daedalus, it sucks. But
it's funny. I just the phrase I just kept popping in my head right now. You need to know the point of diminishing returns.
Yep.
Which is essentially what this is. What's the title again, Jeff? Titles matter. Where is the melting point of wax? This isn't the song called Icarus Falls Horribly to the Sea while Daedalus watches on. That's not the title of the song. The song is what is the melting point of wax? Where is that point, that threshold, where this is no longer going to go good for me?
Where is that limit?
Where's that limit?
Telling
right?
the limits from lies. If I've never tried, where is the limit of where I can get to, and pushing that maybe to the point of no return is a risk you take, but maybe it's worth it. I think putting Icarus as the hero of this song, really kind of the central figure, is maybe sending that message.
Well, what you said, Michael Behr, really hit it for me. Like the limits and lies, because we are lied to so much, we don't know what is truth and what's not. So at this point, we've been lied to so much by those in power. He's being told your wings are going to melt. He's like, well, how do I believe anything unless I find out for myself?
Yep.
All right. So through this conversation, you've brought me back to being a full fan of this. So it's just, it's such a good song. Such a good song. I'm going to say it the third time. It is such a good song. There we go.
You're repeating yourself. Is that from Blood Clots and Black Holes?
It is. It's basically I nothing can give move forward because I'm clouded up. Ooh, that's a weird phrase.
Blood Clots and Black Holes. Is this the most emo title on the album? Maybe.
This probably is the most emo of all titles.
I think the Artist in the Ambulance gives it a run for its money, but that's pretty emo. But yeah, this is pretty emo. Yes.
It would be the Artist in the Ambulance while the ambulance is on fire and I'm crying. That would be like the full emo title of that one. But Blood Clots and Black Holes. Wow, two very different ideas, right?
Yeah.
Very different ideas. It's a song about self-medication, overdose, self-mutilation. These are I think essentially high level. This is a song about doing harm to oneself.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have to admit, I struggle a little bit with the title and like trying to make that connection because I think the black holes kind of get. Is it black holes because things like all the light gets sucked into a black hole and it becomes nothingness? Is that what? Anybody?
Yeah, I think that's probably part of the metaphor here is maybe looking at sending yourself into a black hole, too much self-medication, things like that. You get the blood clots from where you're maybe either cutting or shooting up some drug, and then kind of sending you into that black hole, whether through the high or the death or something like that.
Okay, now I get there because it's the blood clots, like blood clots. You sticking things in your arms or cutting yourself or some form of self-harm leads to the clot to make the heal, right? But then you go into the black hole. I can see that. Okay, I had some trouble with that one, trying to figure out making that connection there.
What do you think about what I've been trying to square on it? You have this line about like where he talks about like it's to be at peace would be a sin and surely un-American. I'm breaking.
That is a good line.
Because it's like, is that the reason why the narrator is trying to convince himself not to self-harm? Because that's not the American way to do things. You're supposed to like pull yourself up by your bootstraps, if you were.
See, I can see that because I think I've heard it from people. They're like, well, just stop doing whatever it is that's hurting you, or like, or don't feel like, why do you feel like that? Don't feel like that, right? It's like the positive vibes, the toxic positive vibes. Just feel better, just think differently. I'm like, yeah, I can't just do that. Like I'm not designed to do that. I don't. And I guess, yeah, more, I think you're right, Jeff. It's about pull yourself up, like be better. Like that's what America is about. We're just, we love the stories of people rising up, except if they don't fully align to our thoughts and how we think, how we see things. And no, I don't want to hear about your rise up story. That's not interesting. But I think that's. What do you think, Michael Behr?
I'm just struggling trying to come up with kind of a hook for this song. To me, this is one of the weaker ones on the album, in my opinion. Kind of a metaphor that's used on a lot of different songs, just in terms of using drugs, not being at peace, things like that. So I don't see a really strong metaphor or point of view in this song. I'm having a little bit more of a difficult time talking about this one. Musically, again, I like it quite a bit, but the lyrics aren't grabbing me in terms of a hook to really discuss much on this song. To me, it's one of the weaker tracks on this album.
I agree. I actually wrote this song rocks. Don't get me wrong. Throw this on. Feel the energy of the music. But I definitely think coming off of some of the other songs are so dense. This one feels a little bit lighter in that.
Yeah. This is where you kind of see some of their relative youth and at this point in their careers in terms of finding that strong lyrical hook and things like that. It feels a little bit more derivative of other things versus their own point of view, in my opinion, on this one.
It's a song saved by the music.
Yeah, exactly.
What's not derivative is C.S. Lewis's Abolition of Man. That's not derivative.
Sure isn't. And just for the listeners at home, we are jumping over The Artist in the Ambulance in the track listings. We've already discussed it.
So if you missed it, go back to the part 1. You'll get it.
You'll get caught in a loop. It'll be fun.
It's funny, Jeff, that you use that phrase. You'll get caught in a loop. I'm going to come back to that. Interesting stuff. What do we think about Abolition of Man?
And this is another just again straight up rocking track. I love the intro. And just kind of the loud quiet and the chorus versus the hard dynamics. Again, the music kind of really gets to me on this one. That's kind of where I'm stuck in this one. Again, I don't really know the C.S. Lewis reference here, so I don't know if you could expound on it a little bit, Phil. Maybe
sure.
Give a little context there.
So the C.S. Lewis is a writer, philosopher, who wrote a book called The Abolition of Man, and we get the direct reference of it with Men Without Chests. This is the part we talk about heart versus head, and there's a connective tissue. So we say the men without chests. It's C.S. Lewis was talking about. It's okay to respond emotionally to experiences at a real level. Well, it's gonna be really hard to explain this in a nutshell. But let's go with it. It's okay to respond emotionally to things. So there are men without chests as a reference. So you've got folks who think one way with their heart or with their head, as I point to my head. There's others who respond basically just with their stomach, which is the more emotional gut reaction to things. So the connective tissue between that is what we need more of, less men without chest. The chest is the connective tissue between the heart, the head, and the stomach. So men without chests they're the ones where it's either the head rules or the head rules or the stomach rules. And you want more people like that they can have emotional, realistic reactions to things, and it's okay to do so. Feel something for once, and it's logical to do so. All right, because a lot of times they teach you that you only have to feel certain ways about certain things, but no, that's not true. I can have and feel about something on an emotional level, not just on a face value level. I'm probably going to get some hate for my butchering of trying to explain the C.S. Lewis. All of it can be sent to me. I'm sure I'll be right there to read it all. And maybe we'll have a good conversation about that.
Yeah, all those C.S. Lewis heads who are listening to our podcast,
which I'm sure there's a plenty.
Yeah, that guy had Santa Claus show up and save kids with weapons and stuff, and Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe, right? That happened.
Yeah. But the song is mostly about just like wake up. I like the fact that it even opens
Yeah.
with that wake up, everyone. Like it's time to wake up.
Wake
This
up.
comes and it's funny. It comes right after ours in the ambulance, which is like it's an interesting one too, connecting the two songs where he said the previous song ours in the ambulance, like can we be that band that puts you back together? And the next song immediately gets into it. Wake up, everybody! It's not too late. Like we can save ourselves. We just need to wake up and get going.
Well, also just on that, like wake up and like this head versus heart situation. There's also a danger that it alludes to when we get to like the head and the science. Like, are we eventually going to just literally that last few lines are like the abolition of man is within the reach of science, but are we so far gone that we'll try it? Like,
Yeah.
like to me, this is the sign of our times. I'm just like, oh, are we gonna like just create AI and have it take over and destroy humanity? Like,
Right.
there's like that is the evolution of man is or humankind is to kind of use science and kind of improve and create. But how far do we go till we destroy humanity? So I think it kind of tips into that kind of like thought.
Right. It's logic versus the gut reaction. So the head would be the AI, would be computers, would be science going so far, then and versus the stomach, which is like full embracing of humanity. There's a balance between the two.
Yeah.
It's like how far are we willing to go? I mean, even the movie AI itself,
Yeah.
Stanley, the not Kubrick. Well, it was his idea, but it was Spielberg who made the movie. But like the whole point of that movie is how far into are we going to lean into one thing or another? Ultimately, this song is about balance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, about it's so, and I think to me, it's okay to have faith. It's cool to have faith, but you can't let that be the full thing that dictates you. Conversely, you can't be, you can't lean into all the stuff. Well, you lose the humanity element, the human element that gets lost if you go full embracing of the other side of the fence. I don't know. It's about balance. It's okay to feel one way and to think one way, or no, let me strike that. It's okay to think, I'm gonna go with that, and have an emotional reaction to it and to decide based on a few things.
Yeah. Wake up, everyone.
Wake up.
It's time to have balance. We need
It's,
that balance.
it's not too late to save the remnants of our hearts.
It's
To
hopeful.
stop giving up. Again,
Yeah.
you see maybe some more glimmers of hope in some of the lyrics of this song versus some of the others on the album. But you know, we still see, you know, in the chorus, you know, we laugh at honor and are shocked when we find knives in our backs. You know, we laugh at this concept of honor, but then we're shocked to find out that the people around us aren't honorable either. So again, finding that balance between who we surround ourselves with and going forward.
Right. He says men without chests are making a comeback. Like that. It's funny how this is such a, even 20 years later, this is like still hits home that, you know, it's about, that line is about division. It's about division between us versus them, and that is making more of a comeback. There's a loss of unity and loss of community here in the song, which is ultimately what they're trying to get to. Like, we need to get back to community again, community, not competition.
But yeah, I like how this is the call to action as well. This is again, it's
right. Rise up.
Yeah. We just saved you in the last song because we're the artist in the ambulance. And now we're telling you what you need to do. Look, we're going deeper. If you look at sequencing in that sense, should we listen to the abolition of man?
Sure, I like the idea. Let's do this.
Let's do it. Here it is, the abolition of man.
Jeff, a moment ago, you used a phrase I'd like to return to, which was caught in a loop. Why would you say that?
I mean, aren't we always, isn't that what life is? Just a constant loop, same thoughts, same reactions over and over again.
I mean, I feel like that because I feel like with Don't Tell and We Won't Ask as an end of an album, we are caught in a loop because thematically, this is like the first song.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like a little thing, like it's about the people, and again, perspective on well, one, titles matter again, but perspective, this sounds like the same person who was in the first song.
Yep.
You know, and like we don't need evidence. I love that. We pay the target, just make it look pretty. We don't need evidence, right? It doesn't have to be flood the market. We'll do it all in self-defense. Never work without your gloves. That's a great line. That is a great line because it's always about like make sure you cover your tracks. Oh, we'd never work without gloves, right? And you'll stay away from. So it's a song about like, look, they admit it's hard to sleep at night because of all the bad shit we have done, but we are going to continue to do that bad shit because we like to stay in power. So it's like it goes right back to the first song. What do you guys think?
No, I agree. I mean, like this is where like I think emotionally I wanted the hopefulness to kind of land here that our narrator from the original song maybe learned a lesson. But that's not what I get from this. I get the all actions are justified. Your actions are all your actions all are justified is like oof, you know, it's
Machiavellian.
Machiavellian.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
And if it comes to murder, don't ask, and we won't tell how you sleep at night. You know,
And
I got to read the lyrics in front of me, but yeah, it's just it comes back to that same point of view where these people at the top are doing these awful things, and we're not going to ask you how you sleep at night with the ghosts of lesser humans whose lives you slip to suit your own. It's again, it's very, very grim in terms of what the people at the top are doing to the folks trying to live their lives down below. Yeah.
Sit and think of all the dollars and the cents and your blue blood, like, and you'll see it may all make perfect sense. Like just sit here and think about your money. Like, don't worry about what's happening to other people. You have money. That's all that matters, right?
right.
Yeah.
And remember, don't the line. Remember, conscience comes before the fall. So if you start feeling bad, you are going to fall. That's how it's going to go real bad for you really quick. What I find funny though is he's Dustin's so good at the sense and the dollars and the cents, rhyming it with perfect sense, like kind of the homonym, yeah. But the next line, drink from this cup, a better life awaits us all. That is such an interesting reference because that's a Kool-Aid reference. And I don't know why we always use, I guess we use it in a negative way, like drink from the Kool-Aid. That's a bad thing, right? That's a bad thing. Because that goes back to, that's because that goes back to Jim Jones in the Jonestown, the drink the Kool-Aid, which had poison in all of them. They went up to, because he convinced them all to drink it, a better life awaits you, right? For them, it was death, which doesn't sound like a better life, but whatever. So, but you would drink from, by drinking from this cup, you're becoming part of us, right? You're now, even the line after that, you're one of us. This is it now. You are a part of us. Welcome to the family.
Not a family you want to be a part of.
Nope. That's right.
Well, maybe you do. I mean, if you care about money more than life, humans, I don't know.
Well, I guess that's true. It's up to you what you choose to decide. But I think what's the other part of that is that those last two lines of the song, don't we all know life is sacred? Don't we all bleed the same red blood? Is kind of like it's Thrice's like last little like to this narrator who's like bought in to being on top and not caring about other people, but don't you realize you must know some level that life is sacred. You must know that we are all the same. And it's kind of the last thought.
It's very Shylock. Do I not bleed? If you cut me, very Shylock. Wow. I've got Machiavelli, C.S. Lewis, Shakespeare. Who else did we get into this episode? Well,
Greek mythology.
Greek mythology.
Greek mythology. I guess that's just a testament of the literacy, book loving nature that is Dustin. How about that?
That's right.
Bro loves books.
Got it. It's you know what? Yeah. Well, again, in the political environment in which we find ourselves, we've got states taking books away from people.
Yeah.
Because God forbid someone should read and have a thought once in a while. I mean,
yeah, particularly about anything different than what you've experienced.
Right. Like the whole reason to connect with art and literature, to expand your human experience and see the other point of view. It's fine. No, we don't. There are places that don't want that right now and continue to not want that. And it's why you need a band like Thrice, you need an album like this.
100%. You need albums like this and bands like this to be like, no, it is not okay to take away knowledge from people. That is one of the songs even talks about knowledge is power. It's the first one, isn't it? Yeah, Cold Cash.
Knowledge is power. No, this is tyranny.
That's,
That's abolition. Not abolition of man. I'll go back to it. But yeah, he does talk about that. I think that's Hoods on Peregrine again, because when you put the hood on, you're taking the
That's right.
knowledge away, and that's if knowledge is power, you're holding it away from us. That's tyranny. By putting the hoods on us, he does kind of come back to that theme quite a bit in this album in terms of people control access to knowledge, access to resources, access to a better way of life, particularly in the first song. So that's kind of what I take from this album in general is the importance of going out there, testing the limits of your knowledge, and attaining that.
It's almost like this is a concept album.
Yeah, it kind of feels like that way. Once you get here, yeah, without being like an on the nose concept album, like it's just really like they had a topic they wanted to talk about and get deep in, and all these things thematically kind of connect together in that way.
No,
Which is why
very cohesive album.
And they felt rushed, and they felt like that's why I have a hard time making. But then again, I'm not the artist in the ambulance. I'm not the artist. I didn't make the album. I feel like I have a hard time. Like you guys dropped this amazing piece of work in rather short amount of time, but they were never happy with it. And I found that very strange.
Well,
Jeff, yep. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's an album so nice they decided to record it twice.
But
That's right.
Maybe we wait long enough, it'll be Thrice.
Ooh, that's some clever wordplay from us.
That's an excellent wordplay.
Thanks so much. I think we should actually. We talked about it earlier. Let's. Do you want to play the song now? Or you want to get into questions?
Let's play a song. Let's play "Artist in the Ambulance" Redux.
Redo. Let's do that. Redux, revisit. I forget. It's revisit. Let's go ahead and play that one now. Folks at home, if you're on Spotify or on YouTube, I want to hear your thoughts. Write it down. Which one do you like better? How about that?
All right, here is the Artist in the Ambulance, new Thrice's version. All right, so that's the album. So I guess now it's time, Phil. Do you have some questions for us?
I do, and hopefully you have answers for me. Jeff and Michael Behr, I would like to know, what do you think is the best song on the album? I've got a hint, but I'd like to know what you think is the best song on the album. Michael Behr, you go first.
So I'm gonna stick with the title track, "Artist in the Ambulance." It's one that I certainly revisit all the time. It is, as I alluded to before, it's probably the most meaningful to me in terms of what I get not only from this album but from all the art and music I listen to. It really just help keep me from those bleeding jaws of death and chance, and come back to it. It's a very, very meaningful, powerful song. Very special to me.
Jeff, what about you?
I'm gonna piggyback on that because same. Artist in the Ambulance. It's the song that's bigger than the album in itself, and it is the one it's probably the most hopeful. But it's a commentary on what music can do, what an artist can do to help save society.
It is a clean sweep because it's the best song on the album. It just is. It's just the best song on the album. Artist is the best song. It is. It encompasses who they are at the time, but more about, I think, the responsibility of artists. And I use that as painters, musicians, writers, journalists who have opportunity, have responsibility to give back and make things better. Yeah, podcasters, our job is to make things better. Hey, if someone ever came up to me and been like, you know what, I really appreciate what you said in that one episode. It really made my day. I look forward to that day, and I sure hope it happens because Bill, I think ultimately, I like hearing myself talk. I do. I love talking. But to be meaningful, have an impact on someone else's life would make my day.
Bill, I say this to you every week after we record an episode.
Yeah, I know. But I know you. Yeah. I guess I want to hear someone I don't know. It's like, well, it's something stupid, but like if my wife says, "Oh, you look really nice today," well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. But if some rando person was like, "Wow, you look really good, man," I'd be like, "Well, thank you. I feel good today. Appreciate you." Just saying.
So maybe this random person on the street will say, "Hey, you look really good today, and also, you made my life better and my day better with your podcast."
That would be a twofer. Now, if they threw something else in, I'd have a thrice.
There it is.
Day. There it is. Yeah. See, Jeff, sometimes you just got. I watch the set happen in volleyball. I'm like, I see it. I know where this is gonna go, and I'm gonna answer it. All right. This is where I don't know what's gonna happen. What is the skippable song? What's the worst song? The one you're just gonna go, nah, move on. Tough album to do.
This is a tough album to do because musically, every song does it for me on this album. but I think probably the most disposable one is the one we mentioned earlier, which is Blood Clots and Black Holes. Just doesn't do as much for me as the rest of the album. Just thematically, lyrically, probably the one I could most easily skip from this particular album.
Jeff, what about you?
That was a contender for me, but I do think that song rocks, and sometimes I just need to not listen too deeply and just feel the energy of that song. For me, it would be, and again, I agree. This is not a skippable track on this album. I will go, and it's mainly a sequencing note. When those first three songs are so perfect, and when I made the joke of Silhouette being the ballad, because it starts a little slow, the momentum kind of feels like it stops a little bit when you're listening to the album. So I would get rid of Silhouette.
It's funny. I had a very, very hard time with this, and both of you mentioned the two songs where I was having the hardest time. It was Blood Clots and Silhouette. I wrote it. I was like, this was my big conundrum. What do I do? And ultimately, I think it came down to the music of Silhouette saving it. And I feel Blood Clots was the one I'm going to skip on Blood Clots. Ultimately, I think that's the weakest song. Now, I think the hardest question. What do you think is the song people sleep on? What's the one song you've always felt was like, this is a fantastic song? I don't know why more people don't talk about this. Why are people talking about this? Michael Behr, I'm going to ask you first. What is the sleeper track?
So the sleeper track to me is "Don't Tell and We Won't Ask" at the very end of the album. It's kind of one of their deeper cuts, obviously, kind of towards the rear of the album. But I think it fits so strong thematically with what they're trying to do. Musically, it's kind of very, very solid with the soft and the screaming and kind of everything in between there. It hit hard live, certainly, when I saw them do it. Like just the power of the huge intro and then the huge screaming parts and the more mellow outro. I think it's one of their better songs, and because it's so deeply buried in the album, maybe some people don't even get to it. So that would be my nomination for sleeper from this album.
Jeff, what about you? What's a sleeper song?
Well, I mean, every time I go to Go Get 'Em Tigers and the barista does not know the song I'm screaming when I walk in, Paper Tigers. I need more people to be on Paper Tigers. That song is a force to be reckoned with, and really hits the themes of the album. And yeah, it's just awesome. Don't sleep on Paper Tigers.
100%. Don't sleep on Paper Tigers. That's my same one. Don't sleep on Paper Tigers. That is an astonishingly good song. Well, it is the loudest. I think it's the most heavy. Like I'm just gonna go like. It's the one I think people sleep on. That's it. We've already talked about it. You've mentioned everything. That's it. Paper Tigers is I think it's a candidate for artists, and then it would be Paper Tigers for me. It would be the second. It really is. It really is.
I agree. Michael Behr, thank you for coming. Before we let you go off back into your life, we want to talk to you a little bit about the scene as a whole for you. Like we focus on obviously the Artists in the Ambulance and Thrice, but would you be willing to kind of share to us like how you came into this music, why it kind of became important to you? And then of course we're going to ask you about your Mount Rushmore, the four artists who you put up on the Mount Rushmore for your punk emo scene.
Yeah, sure. I kind of alluded to this a bunch throughout the episode, just kind of that feeling of community. So, when I was in high school, I was really into the heavier stuff. I kind of got my first taste of those heavy riffs, through the nu metal world, which is obviously part of this time. But through that, that's where I got introduced to the hardcore punk scene. Growing up that close to New York. Going down and being able to just go, to a smaller show. I remember my first real hardcore punk show was Agnostic Front at the Wetlands in New York City, and just being in that room with that crowd and seeing the energy, and these guys up there playing their hearts out, the crowd jumping on the stage and everything, just completely different than anything I'd ever seen up to that point. And I knew I wanted to be a part of that punk world and things like that. And getting to go to multiple shows at Wetlands over the years, different venues throughout New York. It's just really connection you feel to the artist in the room. It's more of a egalitarian thing than a lot of the other music that was in there. But again, you kind of, I bridged more from the mainstream into that underground, because without hearing those first, riffs and things like that, it would have been a little bit less accessible for me. And kind of prior to all that, it was just really listening to bands like Green Day and The Offspring and all that when I was a kid. 94, I think both Dookie and Smash came out, and those were really important albums to me as a kid. And kind of looking at the liner notes, seeing who they're crediting in their albums, that was always a good way to discover bands about those scene, things like that. But just being part of the catharsis of the music is really what kind of brings me back to why this is so important to me. I probably have the least punk rock job in my day-to-day life. Accounting for a large corporation is probably the least punk rock job you could think of. So I need this as kind of that emotional release, and that's kind of why the scene coming into it and the genre still resonates with me to this day. It's just really that emotional release that at least some riffs and screaming at me can get to. So.
Well, there's definitely plenty of TikToks out there of like corporate emos driving to their job and like literally headbanging and screaming in their car, and then like, okay, time to go be the corporate worker.
That's basically my life. I have my headphones that nobody knows what I'm listening to under them, so just that little act of rebellion during the workday gets me through sometimes. So
you also mentioned the Wetlands, the famous or infamous club in downtown Manhattan, which was called the Wetlands because it was also a place where they were trying to actually raise money to save the wetlands.
The Wetlands Conservatory, I think, was the full name of it. Yeah.
But I'm glad you said it, because when I mentioned earlier, when I went the first time I saw Thrice at the Plea for Peace tour with Alkaline Trio, Cave In, and Hot Water Music, it was at Wetlands.
Again, just that part of the scene was always giving back. You have the politics, which we discussed quite a bit on this episode, but you kind of see that in a lot of these bands is trying to make a bigger difference in their community. I've always admired the DIY aesthetic of a lot of these folks, and just something I admire, even if I never really had the ability to reflect that in my day-to-day life. So something admirable about the ability to do that.
Very cool. So you're now building Mount Rushmore for the scene. What bands and artists are going up there?
So I was thinking about this prompt from the email, and I kind of went with more of how did I establish my kind of musical taste into this scene? It leans a little bit more heavy towards the punk versus the emo. So, but we'll kind of talk through my rationale behind that. So the first band I think about when I first kind of got my claws into the scene is the Ramones. So very specifically, I remember being 8 or 9 and just constantly listening to "I Want to Be Sedated." That was my favorite song when I was a little kid, and just that was the genesis of I like these simple guitars, I like the energy, I like that. So Ramones for kind of everything that kind of came after that. They were really one of the progenitors of these poppy little songs that kind of went down that path. So just because how important they were, I kind of put them up there in terms of being the genesis of a lot of the music that I went down. So then the next one I picked was Green Day, because again, very formative album, kind of brought a lot of this into the mainstream. Green Day, without Green Day, Blink-182, I don't think exists in the same level they do. And without, Green Day, you don't get a lot of the stuff coming into the mainstream, into the popularity. So some of these smaller bands could really kind of run behind them. They were the entry point for a lot of folks, my age in particular, into this music genre. I think they were just a very important band to kind of get there. Like, it's my own personal Mount Rushmore, so I'm throwing Minor Threat up there.
Hell yeah!
Oh yeah.
Without Minor Threat, that was kind of my first entree into this music. It can be meaningful for something else. So I didn't get a lot of politics from a lot of the other bands I saw, but Minor Threat had a very distinct point of view. Obviously, I still ascribe to the straight edge lifestyle. I credit them a lot with going out there, being willing to put their message out and do that. Obviously, there are other bands that did that probably, just as well or better. Like Dead Kennedys come to mind for that purpose. But personally, Minor Threat was probably one of the more important bands in terms of I can read the lyrics here and get more meaning out of it than just a simple pop song. So kind of Ramones and Green Day are more like the entry into the music point, but then Minor Threat more was the entree into the harder stuff, as well as music as a message type thing. And I was having a very, very difficult time figuring out my fourth band for this list in terms of who would be most influential, I'd say. So this may be a little off the board, but in terms of the hardcore and metal, I'm going to put Converge up there.
Nice.
So just in terms of on that side of the scene, you could still see their influence in a lot of those bands on that side of the fence today. Jane Doe, I think that was either 99 or 2000, I forget what year that came out, but that album was just so massively influential to the hardcore and metalcore and everything on that side of the fence that I think they deserve a spot up there, as well as just the giving back to the community. I know like Kurt Ballou, the guitarist, runs a music studio that's put out all these albums. And a lot of the bands that sprung out of that scene, them and Cave In were very interconnected. You see Mutoid Man, they kind of have Converge legacy there. So you see a lot of their DNA in the hardcore scene to this day. And I think they're just a very important band from that perspective. So obviously very different bands from all across, but I think a lot of them share the same DNA in terms of the riffs, the song structure, as well as the influence they've had across their genres.
I like bringing Converge in. One, just it's a good band, but two, they're from Salem, Massachusetts. So now we kind of go full circle with the connection back to the second song on the artist in the ambulance because they were burning witches.
No, that's right. That's right.
So it's like a nice little connection. No, I appreciate the way you approach that because it's funny we mentioned Green Day. Without Green Day, there's no Blink. Without Blink, there's no Newfound Glory. Without and so on and so forth. Yours is very similar in that structure. It's like without the Ramones, there's no Green Day. And honestly, without Minor Threat, there's no Converge. Like Minor Threat is a great band. It's one of those like God. They only lasted for like 3-4 years.
Yeah, a few years, but they're the waves that went out from them. There's a lot of bands like that, right. The hardcore scene in particular, where the waves just kind of go out. Right. They're kind of one of the most important to me. Yeah.
It's like Op Ivy in the same kind of sense. Only around for so many years, but yet had such an impact on everything that came after it. I'm also going to throw out for the folks at home who can't see this, and now everything kind of just made really, really good sense. Michael Behr's background is a picture of punk rock accountants. And so now now I get it. And now I love it. I love every second of it.
That's exactly why I picked it, Phil. So.
I kept thinking about it. I'm like, I'm not getting the background, but whatever. I'm going to run with it. And then now that I get it, punk rock accountant. I get it. That's right. That's right.
Well, you just spent all this time talking to a punk rock accountant in Michael Behr, so.
That's right.
Right.
So.
It was right in front of your face the whole time.
It's and I'm usually much more of a better detective than all that, but whatever. Here we are. Mike, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was great to have you here. And
thank you for having me. Like I said, I was looking forward to catching up with you guys since Jeff threw out the invitation. It was great talking about one of my favorite albums with you guys. And anytime you're struggling for a guest, I'm happy to come back on and battle about Thrice some more. So.
Oh, don't worry. I got plenty of albums in mind that I think for your return visit we can jump into. Don't worry about that.
There you go. I'm looking forward to it.
Maybe we'll do Converge. What was I going to say? I want to say a quick thank you to our producer, Megan, my wife, who always answers my questions about stupid things. Always does. Remember to follow us on Spotify as well on the Instagram. Hit follow on that. Appreciate that. Also, if you ever have a comment about one of the albums we're talking about, go ahead and write it. Maybe we'll write back. Who knows? Also, if you're on me on the YouTube, remember to subscribe, like, and comment. I had to get that down right this time. So remember, the YouTube channel, subscribe, like, and comment. Write something. Maybe I'll write back. Maybe I won't. Maybe it's some stupid thing I don't want to deal with. We'll find out. Jeff, you want anything to end on?
Yeah, I just want to add in, we are making this on Spotify. It's a Spotify exclusive because it's a great platform to make a podcast. And you can do this as well. Spotify makes it very easy for you to make your own podcast where you can chat about music and then actually play songs. So go out there and start your own podcast and use
You know what?
Spotify.
Use Spotify. You know what? Because we're on that, Joe. Can we hear "Stare at the Sun" before we sign off? Just one more time.
Well, sure. Which version?
I'd like to do the revisited version, please.
I agree.
What was it? Thrice's version. Let's do that. Can we do that, please?
Yeah, we're doing "Stare at the Sun," Thrice's version, featuring Andy Hall of Manchester Orchestra. Please enjoy this as we sail into the sunset on this episode.